there, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, virtual space hero community. It is fantastic to be back on stage and today be talking about a really exciting topic. There has been quite a polarized discussion, I'd say, on LinkedIn about the topic of workation or bleisure, business and leisure trips. And I'm really excited today because we are diving deep into the topic from someone who knows very well what it means and who has been working remotely and enjoying the benefits of vacations for quite some time. And with that, no further ado, I'm super happy and excited to welcome on today's virtual space here, LinkedIn live stage, Nadia Harris, the founder from Remote Work Advocate. Hello there, Nadia.
Hi, hello. So happy to be here. Hi, Barbara.
Thank you so much for taking your time. Let us know, where are you connecting from today?
Today I'm connecting from Poland, a bit jet lagged because I just flew in from the States, but I think I'll make it.
This is fantastic. Great to hear. So we are close by, at least on the same continent. Nadia, you are the founder of Remote Work Advocate. And I'm also, for everyone here, check out Nadia's webpage. There's a lot of fantastic content there, also on her blog, worth reading. But Nadia, give us a little bit of an idea of what your story is. How did you start in 2018, way before the pandemic, the remote business that you're currently excelling in?
Yes, so that's true. I started the brand. So when I started being an advocate for remote work in 2018, but I started working remotely in 2015, as a matter of fact, and I never believed in it. So at that time, I lived in the States. I moved to the States from Europe exactly in 2015, and I was just applying to different jobs at that time. And suddenly I got approached by a company from LA saying, "Hey, you're looking for someone remotely from home." And I was like, God, that's got to be a scam, you know? You can't have a normal job from home. Like, what is that, you know? But me being curious, always too curious even, I said, okay, let's give it a try. And then that's how it started. And in the beginning, I never believed that it would work out. But then with time, I started noticing I had an on-site job in the end as well, just for security reasons. I thought, I'll still be on the lookout. It's stable, you know, and
Let's keep something traditional, right?
exactly. And very quickly, I noticed that definitely that was not my path. You know, I was sitting at my desk. It was a great role and an amazing company, but I felt like something was wrong. I thought something was wrong with me, that I was in a way unstable because, you know, something so great, you really wanted it. Here you are. Then a few months later, you're like, what? You know, and then I was angry with myself. But then with time, the more I started learning about remote and about different management models and exploring, and also I moved back to Europe, I could keep whatever I was doing in the States because of remote.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, that opens the world. And then with time, I was involved in HR, talent acquisition, working with companies from all around the world. So we were connecting online already back in 2015, 16. And I thought, wow, that's so amazing. I'd love more people to be able to do this, you know? And then I really started believing in it so much. Many people and many companies were kind of, well, it's kind of interesting what she's doing, but she doesn't seem to be too serious. Well, I was really serious, you know. And then obviously the deeper into the story, the more, you know, with time, I think the world started understanding that it can be different, which is, well, if there's one positive thing coming out of the pandemic is the fact that it changed people's mindset a bit, that it doesn't
Mm.
have to be in the office. There are strings attached now to it because they think that remote work and work from home is the same thing, which it's not, but that's a different story. And here I am. Yeah, that's in a nutshell.
That sounds super exciting, and it's indeed true. Even though, you know, as a researcher, and I've been working as a researcher for over 10 years, researching is a very international business or an international endeavor. So I was always very international, but it's interesting how from 2020, also my network increased exponentially, also client network in terms of virtual work, and exactly what you were saying in terms of being able to have a more open mindset, that the mindset changed and how people are viewing it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, before it was, I remember I did 2018, as a matter of fact, I did my MBA in the States, and I did it partially remotely. That was so
Mm,
amazing. They had the professors fly into different destinations, but the rest was online. And I was like, wow, that's so cool.
mm,
That's really amazing. Because if you work all the time and work full time, that was before I started my brand, you just can't attend all the time. You can't commute from one city to the other, take time off. It just makes things very difficult. But we have technology here for a reason, and it
mm.
was possible that it happened. So,
Mm.
yeah.
It's indeed, as Patricia is saying here, awesome subject proving that everything is possible and no idea is crazy. Thanks, Patricia, for your contribution. Believe, exactly. And that's also what we do, both of us, Nadia and me. We are true believers in virtual possibilities, virtual and hybrid work. But Nadia, help us understand a little bit as a remote work advocate with your company. So, what are you doing?
Yes, so my major mission is to help companies and individuals embrace flexible working. So that means all kinds of flexible working models. My most favorite one is remote, obviously, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to be remote. So I also wrote a book, which is called How to Tackle Hybrid Working. It's all about flexibility and the fact that today we have a choice. So when I work with companies, I'm actually also a remote work lawyer. So I design policies for companies to work abroad, which is actually today's topic, workations. Yeah, and I design processes, procedures to ensure scalability when it comes to communication, intercultural communication, a really interesting and very valid topic in distributed teams, asynchronous collaboration, remote leadership as well. So basically, how to make it work if you want to be distributed. And every company that has at least one person not being in the office permanently is to some extent remote and should be able to embrace the digital era. When it comes to individuals, I would say I love the idea of giving everybody a fair chance to work for an amazing company, no matter where they
Mm,
were born and no matter where they live. And unfortunately, our world is structured this way that if you happen to be born in a destination and in a family that can financially support you, and then you can work for a great company, well, then you're privileged. What about the rest of the world? So, my mission is to kind of change that bias here because I believe that everyone deserves this opportunity. And also through my articles that I publish regularly, through all the content, I hope that, I know, so luckily I already validated this. Individuals get inspired and they know where to go to change their life, and to get this opportunity that they dream about.
Yeah, it is really, it's indeed a great thing that virtual work and virtual possibilities took away a lot of those inequalities that still exist, but decreased the inequalities from a global perspective. And I see here, I really find that comment very thoughtful, Patricia, and funny. When you started your own business in 1996 from your kitchen table, hiding that fact was important. Indeed, it changed very much the attitude and the way we are viewing people working from their kitchen table is very, very much different. So let's jump now into today's topic. So it's about workation, who can do it and how to do it lawfully. So Nadia, you yourself, what is your definition of workation and how do you practice it?
Yes. So I think the term workation, maybe it's a catchy one, definitely, but it's not 100% valid because a workation has nothing to do of combining time off or vacation time with working. So I saw people feeling quite reserved about it. Like, you should be able to take time off without working. And of course, we are not talking about traveling with your family when you have time off, you need to take a break and carrying your laptop everywhere. That's not a workation, but it's a fancy name. So, what it really is the fact that despite the fact that we go on vacation, despite the fact that we take time off to take a break, instead of working from home or working remotely from our home country, which remote and work from home are two different things. Remote is broader. You can also go to another country for different reasons. So now in Europe, it's getting cold, you see. Not everybody likes it. So if someone has the possibility to work remotely and doesn't have to be in the office, Well, maybe they can take their laptop and go, I don't know, to the Canary Islands. Maybe they can go to Dubai, for example. Maybe they can go to Bali. Maybe they can go, I don't know, to South America. They can do it. Many companies are working on it. Obviously, not for very long because of many things that we will talk about in a second. But essentially, you can change your location and work where it's most convenient for you. Also, some people like exploring. They don't want to be only in one physical location, like me, for example. I have a permanent residence, so to say, so I have a home. But then again, if I would stay in the same place all the time and know that I can systemically just take, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 weeks of vacation during the year, that would kill me. I'm like, no, 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 no. I need inspiration. I need cultures. I need to be able to jump on a plane and then literally land in Italy, land in France, just to have coffee, to have pasta, to take a look around, to be like, breathe, hello, here I am, fresh ideas, new people, new environment, embrace the culture, and then I go back. So this is how I live it. I don't travel all the time. It looks this way in social media, I know, but trust me, I also embrace the quality of my own home.
That is good to know. And indeed, I think you picked up in your first sentence something that is for me very important when we talk about vocation or bleisure, business and leisure, that I think we need to be aware that it is not when you really go on vacation to have your computer with you all the time. I think that intentionality needs to be mentioned or needs to be added as a dimension when we talk about the topic. And for myself as well, we talked about that briefly. We have family in Argentina, we have family in Austria, we are based in Spain. And for us as well, the possibility to move as a remote worker or as a slow mat or digital nomad, we don't like to call ourselves that way because we are mainly based in Europe, and I wouldn't be nomading all the time because it drives me nuts. That's way too much for me. But being able to move for 2 months to Argentina, combining the different scenes, environments, culture, and being able to pass our summer away from hot Spain in Austria, that of course is a luxury that we as knowledge workers can permit ourselves. This also brings me to the next question. So when we talked about the title, who can do it and how to do it lawfully, the topic about who can do it, of course, we know we're talking about a small portion of the world's population, to be honest, who can really do workations, because those, we're talking about knowledge workers. So what is your experience here about who can do it?
Yeah, we obviously talk about knowledge workers. If the portion is extremely small, well, hopefully not, but definitely knowledge workers. So let's say that's the broad category. Who is a very good question, because I come across many discussions and many questions. So, like, why can my friend be location independent, but my employer tells me no? Recently, I got an email, a message, a question from someone from the US, and that's, I will share the story here. So this person worked for a US company with their fiance, and they thought that, well, they don't really want to live in the United States. So without telling and informing the company, they sold everything in the States, and they actually bought property in Mexico. And then they told their employer that they're going away, and the employer said no. And then this person reached out to me, Nadia, help me. Who's right, who's wrong? And I'm like, well, unfortunately, I'm very sorry, but you can't do things that way. So we have two categories. The first category is contractors. Many companies work with contractors. Contractors are not employees. Contractors are independent entities, independent businesses that are responsible for their own risks, like taxes, for example, like social insurance, all kinds of health and safety, all kinds of things, visas, whatever, right? Everything is the contractor's responsibility. So there's no link, like there is no employer, okay? But if we have a work relationship and we have an employer and an employee, the situation is a bit different, because an employee is not an independent individual, right? But is like part of the company. So in this case, you can't really work from anywhere because of many reasons. For example, tax matters, employment laws, right? You're hired as an employee in one country. If it's not designed properly and you just go, you don't tell anyone, it could be that most probably Number one, we have a comment from Patricia. I can see you run into tax issues because your tax resident changes. Most importantly, you also may be even doing some kind of business activities that will result in your employer's tax resident change, which is tons of problems. Let's not even get into that. That's like the darkest of darkest scenarios. Social insurance, you travel, you get sick, you don't know where to go. The company is also responsible for that. There are fines, right? Yeah, and also, as I've said, employment laws. So you're hired in one country, you go to another country, and it turns out that you actually should be subject to a different jurisdiction. So there are policies that companies can design to kind of minimize the risks of all these aspects that I've discussed. But it's not like an employee just can take their laptop and say, bye bye, I'm just not going to inform you. Obviously, some people do it, but that is not right.
And you know, I just want to draw the attention here to our audience that I have seen on your remote work blog a blog post about how to design workation policies. Exactly, how to design a workation policy. So there it is for everybody out there listening to us. If you go to remoteadvocate.com, go to the blog, and you find there an article about how to design a workation policy. What else? So you were talking about the who, right? And Nadia, and the consequences. So in this case, what happened with your US American couple selling everything and moving to Mexico? What did they have to do at the end?
I don't know what they did in the end, but I said that the employer is right. I mean, I said, okay, if you wanted to go temporarily, I do believe that there is an opportunity to discuss. But if you're moving forever, my only solution that I could recommend, and that's what I did, was an employer of records. An employer of records, there are companies, employers of records that are companies that have their businesses registered in different countries of the world. So the target company, so let's say our US company, doesn't have an entity in Mexico, which means they can't be an employer in Mexico, but they can get in touch with an employer of records, have a contract so that the employer of records, who is lawfully registered and can be an employer in Mexico, can actually take that on and hire that person and give them the possibility. So this is the only solution that I see, unless this big company also had an entity, a branch in Mexico, which was not the case.
And it's interesting to see because there has also been an increase in those kind of companies, right? Isn't it like Chili Piper or Oyster who are offering those kind of services? I'm not sure if it's exactly in their portfolio, but I've seen an increase on those companies as well, right?
Yeah, there are many: Oyster, Remote, Work Motion, Deal, Safeguard Global. Oh, there's many of them. Their offer varies a bit, right? So it also depends what you're looking for, and also the solutions, the interface, connecting with other tools, for example, with other HR software, things like that, and also the countries and what they offer, and obviously the pricing. But I remember when this industry started growing, which was early 2020, and the number of countries was limited because it's also not that quick to register your business entity in a foreign country. It's not that time. But now most countries are available, and it does happen. And this is also the main source of other companies saying that they are now hiring from anywhere, because legally it is possible. But it doesn't mean, again, that this person that we're talking about, this case, that they would be living in Mexico with the possibility to travel the world nonstop. No. So that's a completely different story. So workations and moving permanently to a different country, that's a completely different category.
Very important points that you're mentioning here. Let's now move. We have thought about these aspects that concern tax, legal implications, and who can really do that, and what you need to consider as an individual before just moving abroad without letting your employer know. If you think about yourself and what your sort of your experience taught you, how do you need to organize yourself if that sort of traveling and working from different places is possible for you? What do you do to stay productive, to stay with energy, to stay focused while you're being in beautiful places around the globe?
Okay, so the response, so number one to start with, it's beautiful. I fully embraced it and I would never change it. But there are strings attached. It's very difficult to focus, and I will tell you why. It's natural. If you're in a new, beautiful place that you don't know, you want to go explore it, no matter how much you love what you do. But suddenly, and I love what I do. I mean, I'm like so passionate, even too passionate at times, right? Then still, I feel like I really want to get out. So you have to be focused. Mistakes that you should not and cannot make. Sometimes people reach out to me and they tag me on in their posts on LinkedIn that workations aren't working, and I read the story. Well, because you, for example, go with your family, with 2 kids and with your partner to a resort for 2 weeks. You have one room and you take your laptop and you're thinking that you will work there. Of course, you can focus. You're like, no, it's not working. I'd rather take a break. My back hurts because I'm working from my bed. My kids are yelling and screaming around me. And I'm like, well, that's exactly a recipe of how to do it wrong. So, you have to think about it, how you're going to plan your day. The question is if you can even go there. Because I also get many questions, how do I choose the destination? Well, you go somewhere, it turns out you need a visa and you're denied entry. You go somewhere, you have an encrypted laptop. There are countries like this in the world. You can't go there with an encrypted laptop to start with, okay? So bye-bye, go home, because it's your company's laptop. Number three, well, you definitely should check. There's a rise of digital nomad visas as well if you want to stay longer. For example, if you're within the EU, you can just travel, I would say, relatively freely because you have the right to work all around the EU, especially if you're a EU citizen. But for people outside of the EU and where the move of is not that free, then you can definitely check digital nomad visas, which is super great. It's an amazing solution. And how to stay focused and productive? I think, realistically speaking, you really have to think what's going to be feasible for you. What is the goal? What's the minimum that you have to deliver? What obstacles potentially can happen? Like, you have a promise that you're going to have great internet. It turns out that I had it in Italy, for example. In the south of Italy a few years ago, I was staying in a super old building with very thick walls. So my internet was amazing, yes, but only in the main room next to a huge window where tons of people were walking. In my room, there was nothing, like a black hole. It's like, how can you conduct, I don't know, even LinkedIn lives? I wouldn't be able to do that because of the noise behind me. So think about everything that can go wrong. Okay, not to discourage you, but just think about it and to be ready that this may be something to overcome when that happens.
Absolutely. And I think particularly for remote workers, we do know that the Wi-Fi and internet stability is an important issue, which also sometimes limits a little bit the possibilities where to travel to, except you're bringing your own internet with you. And I myself, I remember in Argentina, we did think that the internet in the house we were staying in was pretty good. But at the end, we also know that Microsoft Teams, it's such a heavy program that for all my Teams workshops, I had to move into an Airbnb in the city center with really great internet. You mentioned really a lot of great points also to consider as an individual when you go abroad and when you want to use workations. We talked about the issue with tax liability, planning your working time, and all those things. If we think now a step ahead, what would you say is something that you yourself would do differently when it comes to workation? Are like sort of those big mistakes that you also did, that you overcome with new strategies, new techniques, or new ways of dealing with things?
Um, well, there is one probably. I would do everything to limit situations where I have to open my laptop on my suitcase, being at an airport. So that's definitely something that I would avoid at all times. So you must know that I have, I would say, it's sometimes a too optimistic approach towards things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I will be sitting at the airport for 3 hours. Amazing. I have nothing else to do. I'm just going to work. No, 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 no. Let's be very realistic here. Try not to do this. So I would say, definitely, we still have working norms, especially in companies. If you're hired as employees, I'm not. So if I say I work 1 hour or 12 hours, I'm not going to have consequences from my employer, rather from my clients. Okay. That's a
Mm.
different story, but equally unpleasant. Okay, so I think you should look at the minimum, how much you know that you can deliver without any issues. And I think that you have to consider delays as well, because it may happen. I got stuck numerous times and I was really stressed out knowing that I have to deliver. For example, situations where you're sitting on a plane about to take off, it turns out that there is an issue For 2 hours, you're sitting on the plane. But me, I have, for example, planned a client meeting 30 minutes after landing. So now I have to reschedule everything, reach out, keep calling, this and that. Try not to do this. So if you know that you're precisely moving, you're on a plane, on the bus, on a train, you still can be like, okay, I just want you to be aware that I may not make it because something may happen. And but don't schedule super important things then and deliverables, because why stress out, if you
Yeah.
could have, done something to avoid it.
I think this is such an important point, because even I almost always really mess up with my calendar, and I schedule things the day after the arrival, and it's like, dear God, why am I doing this to myself? One thing that I'd really love to see how you handle that. I was really lucky this year. We were for 2 months in Argentina. And I think of course, the time difference to Europe is huge. And even though I have Latin American clients, the major client base for me is in CET time zone. And lucky me, I think I only had to get up in the 2 months we were there, maybe 7 times at 2 a.m., right? Which would be the 9 a.m. training start here in Europe. But how do you plan that long ahead with clients, or can't you do that? Or what would be your suggestions to think about that, to structure your business around the time zones that you might be likely to travel to?
Yeah, it happened with me working with Australia, which the experience is really not fun. Getting up be it when I was in Europe, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, being ready to have a call at 4:30 or at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not an early bird, so that was dramatic. I would say, yeah, like really, that cost me a lot of effort to make it work. Equally at night. So now, when I have, for example, a client in the US, which is the Western time, Pacific Standard Time in the West, then
Yeah.
there's a 9 hour time difference. And it did happen that I had calls scheduled at 10 o'clock at night or at 11 o'clock at night, which is very tough. But I would say, if you are, let's talk about employers and employees. So let's talk about a company. There's something that is called in companies core hours. Okay. So, and many companies do this, that they say that, all right, we either have people distributed in different time zones all around the world, or we know that people travel, but regardless, we have, I don't know, 3 or 4 core hours where we
Mm.
expect that this is when we are going to schedule meetings. This is going to be the time when we request availability, okay, if anything happens. And usually it's this way, that if someone then makes a decision, okay, I really want to stay in Australia for 2 months with my family, I kind of know that I'm taking on that risk, okay, in a way, because we can't also request a company of 500 or 5,000 people to
Mm.
suddenly adjust to one person. But from my perspective, what I try to do with clients is I try to inform them, change my time zone, block it in my calendar. Most importantly, check your calendar, because I also scheduled, I just told you right before the meeting that I am like, yes, I'm available, without checking my calendar. So even a very simple thing like just checking your calendar is essential to make it work. Yeah, and then obviously in your calendars you can also adjust the time zones, and automatically, for example, decline meetings as well. So you can, if someone schedules it, your client or your colleague, not everyone may know, but you can have it automatically decline and say, hey, well, during this time I will be in a different time zone. If it's possible, pre-schedule the meeting within the next 2 hours, because that's when I'm going to be available. So you can automate that as well.
Fantastic. There are very good suggestions there. And from an organizational perspective, of course, the core hours as an instrument that you need to implement is very important. So, Nadia, there were so many more questions that I could ask you, of course, exchanging and hearing from your remote life stories, but probably we will be doing that at another point in time. It was fantastic hearing your perspective on vacation, and also how to do it or how not to do it. And I encourage you all to check out remoteworkadvocate.com. I know, Nadia, maybe we want to leave us with one sentence about another project that you joined this year. It is the Remote First Institute, just to give our listeners, our viewers, a few ideas on where to go to get more content than at the virtual space here, Remote Work Advocate. There's also the Remote First Institute, right?
Yes, literally just Google, please, the Remote First Institute. I am a founding member, and our mission is to well, shift the mindset of the world, companies and individuals. When it comes to going back to the office, that we don't have to. So, how to do this right? There are amazing experts, amazing conversations taking place literally every week. Tons of content being shared, a closed community as well. So check it out, and I'm sure that you will find something. It's really an amazing resource from individuals that have gathered from all around the world to build something great together. And I'm absolutely honored to be part of this journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Total recommendation. Remote First Institute. You find it on Google easily. Lots of webinars and info sessions that you can attend for free, but also possibilities to join as a member or a partner. So great aspects. Thanks so much, Nadia, for joining and for taking your time to be with us here on the LinkedIn Live stage. You know that I have an anti-alcoholic cocktail prepared behind the scenes, and I will be joining you in a minute. Thanks for being with us, Nadia.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Bye. Thank you very much, Virtual Space Hero community, for your comments and also for approaching us always with topics and speakers that you would like to see on our LinkedIn live stage. It was a great conversation, and I'm just giving you a quick outlook. Next week, we are going to talk about why employee happiness is even more important in a remote context. So check out on virtualspacehero.com our upcoming LinkedIn live guests. This year, we still have 2 more scheduled, and then 2023 will start with a lot of power and a slightly different focus that I will talk to you about next week. Thank you very much for being here, and I wish you a beautiful morning, afternoon, or good night. Become a virtual space hero. Bye.